Marcus Chen stood in the grimy waiting room of the Galactic Legal Services building, his prosthetic leg aching from the long journey through 3 different space stations. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in a sickly green glow that made his dark skin look pale. He checked his worn military chronometer for the 5th time in 10 minutes. The alien bureaucrat behind the reinforced glass barrier hadn't even looked up from whatever passed for paperwork in their species. Next came a voice that sounded like gravel being churned in a cement mixer. Marcus limped forward, his combat boots echoing on the metal floor. The creature behind the glass had 4 arms and skin that looked like wet leather. Its 3 eyes regarded him with obvious disdain. "State your business, human." Marcus Chen, Sergeant First Class, retired. Earth Defense Force Service Number 7749 Delta Kilo. I received a summons regarding an inheritance from someone called King Vorthak of the Zenthari Empire. All 3 of the alien's eyes widened. 2 of its arms stopped moving entirely while the other 2 frantically shuffled through electronic tablets. "You are certain of this name?" That's what the message said. "Look, I don't know any alien kings. I've never been to whatever planet he's from. I just want to figure out why some dead alien left me something and get back to Earth. My pension doesn't exactly cover interstellar travel." The bureaucrat's translator collar sparked slightly as it processed rapid speech. "Please wait. This requires immediate attention from a superior." Marcus slumped into a chair that wasn't designed for human anatomy and watched various alien species shuffle through the waiting area. Most gave him curious glances. Humans were still relatively new to the galactic community, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 15 years ago. The first contact had been during the Regilius War, when Earth had somehow managed to tip the balance between 2 massive alien coalitions. 20 minutes later, a different alien approached him. This one stood 7 feet tall, with crystalline skin that refracted light in strange patterns. When it spoke, the words seemed to come from multiple directions at once. "Sergeant Chen, I am Administrator Quelox. We need to discuss your inheritance privately. Please follow me." They walked through a maze of corridors lined with floating holographic displays, showing legal documents in dozens of alien scripts. Marcus's military training kept him alert, cataloging exit routes and potential threats out of habit. The prosthetic leg made him slower than he used to be, but his mind remained sharp. Quelox led him into an office that looked more like a medical facility than a legal chamber. Strange instruments hung from the ceiling, and the walls seemed to pulse with a faint bioluminescent glow. "Sergeant Chen, what I am about to tell you must remain confidential until the inheritance transfer is complete. King Vorthak of the Zenthari Empire died 3 standard months ago. His will specifically names you as the inheritor of his most prized possession." Marcus frowned. "I've never heard of this guy. Why would he leave me anything?" "Because you saved his life during the Battle of Xerion Prime." The memory hit Marcus like a punch to the gut. Xerion Prime, 18 months ago. His engineering unit had been tasked with destroying a Krell weapons platform that was decimating the Allied fleet. The mission had gone sideways when Krell forces overran their position. Marcus had been trying to evacuate wounded soldiers when he found an alien pinned under debris from a collapsed building. The alien had been massive, even for his species, with deep purple skin and golden armor that was cracked and bloodied. Marcus had spent precious minutes freeing him instead of saving himself. They'd fought side by side for 20 minutes until evacuation arrived, neither able to understand the other's language, but communicating through the universal language of warfare. "The big purple guy with the ornate armor? King Vorthak." "Yes. He spoke of your actions frequently after the battle. You refused to abandon him despite the tactical disadvantage. You shared your medical supplies with him. You fought with what he called impossible human determination to protect wounded soldiers." Marcus remembered. The alien had been skilled in combat but seemed amazed by Marcus's refusal to retreat. When their evacuation ship finally arrived, they had exchanged what Marcus assumed was some kind of warrior's salute. He'd never expected to hear about it again. "So he left me something." "What? A medal? A weapon?" Quelox's crystalline features shifted in what might have been nervousness. "He left you his bond companion, a Zenthari battle wolf named Kithara. He left me a, what now?" Among the Zenthari, Bond companions are sacred. They are intelligent beings who choose their partners and fight alongside them for life. King Vorthak's bond with Kithara lasted over 60 standard years. In his will, he stated that only someone with your demonstrated courage and loyalty could be trusted with her care. Marcus rubbed his temples. He'd been hoping for maybe some alien technology he could sell to pay off his medical debts. I don't know anything about taking care of alien animals. I live in a one-bedroom apartment in Detroit. I can barely afford to feed myself. There are complications you should be aware of before making your decision, such as Quelox activated a holographic display that showed what looked like a cross between a wolf and a panther, but the size of a small horse. Its fur seemed to shift between deep blue and silver, and its eyes glowed with an inner light that suggested intelligence far beyond any Earth animal. Zenthari battle wolves are telepathically linked to their companions. Kithara has been in psychological distress since the king's death. She has refused to eat and attacks anyone who approaches her. Several Zenthari nobles have attempted to claim her, but she has injured them severely. So you're giving me a depressed, violent, telepathic alien wolf that's bigger than my apartment. If you refuse the inheritance, she will be put down according to Zenthari law. King Vorthak believed you would not allow this to happen. Marcus stared at the hologram. Even in the static image, he could see intelligence in those glowing eyes. During his deployment, he'd seen too many good soldiers die because of politics and bureaucracy. The idea of an intelligent being dying because no one wanted to deal with her didn't sit right with him. What exactly would I be agreeing to? Legal guardianship of Kithara, including responsibility for her well-being and actions. The king's will also includes a substantial trust fund for her care, as well as a ship capable of interstellar travel. A ship? The Zenthari consider their battle wolves to be warriors of equal rank to their humanoid companions. She cannot be transported as cargo. The ship is legally hers, though as her guardian, you would have access to it. Marcus thought about his situation back on Earth. His disability pension barely covered rent and food. The VA hospital was 3 hours away by public transport. His ex-wife had remarried and moved to New Angeles with their daughter, citing his post-war attitude problems in the divorce papers. If I agree to this, what happens next? You will be transported to the Zenthari Royal Facility where Kithara is being held. If she accepts you as her new companion, the inheritance transfer will be completed. If not, Quelox's form shimmered. Previous attempts have resulted in significant injuries. Marcus stood up, his prosthetic clicking against the floor. When do we leave? The transport to the Zenthari facility took 6 hours through hyperspace. Marcus spent the time reviewing files about Zenthari culture and battlewolf biology that Quelox had provided. The more he read, the more concerned he became. Zenthari battlewolves were bred not just for size and strength, but for intelligence and psychic abilities. They could communicate telepathically with their bonded companions across vast distances, and had been known to sense danger before it became apparent to other species. Kithara had been King Vorthak's companion since she was a juvenile, meaning she had over 60 years of combat experience and tactical training. The files also made it clear that without proper bonding, a battle wolf could become dangerously unstable. Several had died of psychological trauma after losing their companions. Others had become permanently aggressive, requiring termination for public safety. The Zenthari facility looked like a cross between a military base and a temple. Massive purple towers reached toward the orange sky, connected by bridges that seemed too delicate to support their own weight. Marcus was escorted by 2 Zenthari guards who stood 8 feet tall and wore armor that looked like it was grown rather than manufactured. "Human Marcus Chen," one of them rumbled. "You will have one opportunity to approach Kithara. If she rejects you, we cannot guarantee your safety." They led him through corridors decorated with murals depicting Zenthari and their battle wolves in various heroic poses. The art style was more realistic than human paintings, showing scars and wounds alongside the glory. Marcus noticed that many of the wolves were portrayed as being larger and more prominent than their humanoid partners. They stopped outside a massive door marked with symbols that his translator couldn't interpret. Beyond this door is Kithara's enclosure. She has been alone since the king's death. Enter only when you are prepared. Marcus took a deep breath and placed his palm on the door sensor. The barrier slid open to reveal a space that was part habitat and part memorial. The walls were covered with holographic displays showing King Vorthak and his battle wolf in various campaigns across multiple star systems. In the center of the room, on a raised platform surrounded by what looked like offerings from various alien species, lay Kithara. She was even more magnificent than the holos had suggested. Her fur did shift color, cycling slowly between deep blue and silver, as if reflecting some internal mood. She was easily the size of a terrestrial horse, with powerful muscles visible beneath her coat. Her ears were longer than a wolf's, more mobile, and constantly tracking sounds from multiple directions. When Marcus stepped into the room, those glowing eyes fixed on him immediately. He felt a pressure in his mind, like something trying to push its way into his thoughts. The sensation was uncomfortable but not painful. "Hello, Kithara," he said, not knowing if she could understand him. "I'm Marcus. I served with your king during the war." The pressure in his mind intensified, and suddenly he was experiencing flashes of memory that weren't his own. He saw the Battle of Zerion Prime from a different perspective, watching himself pull debris off King Vorthak, while energy bolts scorched the air around them. He felt the aliens' pain and gratitude, but also sensed a deeper observer, watching through the king's eyes. Kithara had been there, linked to her companion even across the vast distance of space, experiencing the battle through their bond. She had felt Marcus's determination to save a wounded ally, his refusal to abandon someone in need despite the personal cost. The wolf rose to her feet, and Marcus realized exactly how large she was. Standing, her shoulder came up to his chest. She could probably bite his head off without much effort. Instead, she approached slowly, her enormous paws making no sound on the metal floor. When she was close enough that he could see his reflection in her luminous eyes, Marcus felt her mind touch his again. This time, instead of memories, he sensed emotions, complex and profound. Grief for her lost companion, loneliness that went deeper than anything Marcus had experienced. But also curiosity and something that might have been hope. "I don't know if I'm worthy of taking his place," Marcus said quietly, "but I won't abandon you like everyone else wants to do." Kithara moved closer, until her massive head was inches from his face. Marcus could feel her breath, warm and carrying scents he couldn't identify. Then, very gently, she pressed her forehead against his. The mental contact this time was different. Instead of pressure or foreign memories, Marcus felt a sense of recognition, as if something in his mind had clicked into place. The loneliness he'd carried since coming home from the war seemed to ease slightly, replaced by an awareness that he was no longer entirely alone. Kithara stepped back and made a sound that was part growl, part purr. Through their newfound connection, Marcus sensed approval, and something that might have been relief. "Well," he said, reaching out to scratch behind one of her mobile ears, "I guess we're partners now." The door slid open behind them, and the Zenthari guards entered. Upon seeing Marcus standing unharmed next to Kithara, they both performed what looked like a military salute. "The bond is accepted," the lead guard announced. "The inheritance transfer is complete. Welcome to the Zenthari Empire, battle companion Marcus Chen." 3 days later, Marcus stood in the docking bay of the Zenthari facility, staring at what was apparently now his ship. The vessel looked nothing like human spacecraft, which tended to be boxy and utilitarian. This ship flowed like liquid metal, frozen in motion, all curves and organic shapes that seemed to shift slightly when he wasn't looking directly at them. "The Stormclaw," explained Administrator Quellox, "was grown rather than built. Zenthari biotechnology integrates living components with traditional systems. The ship will respond to both your commands and Kithara's instincts." Kithara padded up beside Marcus, her massive form moving with surprising grace. Over the past 3 days, their mental connection had grown stronger. Marcus could sense her emotions more clearly now, and sometimes caught glimpses of her thoughts. Right now, she was projecting familiarity and affection for the ship, along with memories of countless journeys with King Vorthak. "Grown?" Marcus asked, running his hand along the ship's hull. The surface felt warm and almost seemed to pulse under his touch. The hull contains specialized organisms that can self-repair minor damage and adapt to different environmental conditions. The neural network integrates with Zenthari Battlewolf telepathic abilities, allowing for enhanced coordination between pilot and navigator. Marcus felt a mental nudge from Kithara and understood immediately. She was the navigator. The realization hit him that this wasn't just a ship he'd inherited. It was her ship, designed specifically to work with her abilities. What about life support? Food? I can't exactly live on whatever she eats. The ship's biological systems can synthesize nutrients for multiple species. King Vorthak often traveled with diplomatic teams from various worlds. However, you should be aware that several parties have expressed interest in your inheritance. Quelox's crystalline form shifted colors in what Marcus had learned indicated nervousness. 3 separate Zenthari noble houses have filed legal challenges claiming that a human cannot properly care for a royal battlewolf. Additionally, representatives from the Krell Empire have suggested that giving advanced Zenthari technology to humans violates several interstellar treaties. Marcus felt anger spike through his mental link with Kithara, though whether it was his emotion or hers was unclear. So they want to take her away. The legal challenges will take months to resolve. However, there is no requirement that you remain in Zenthari space while the proceedings continue. Many believe you should travel to neutral territory until the matter is settled. And if I lose the legal challenges, Kithara would likely be euthanized rather than given to another caretaker. She has made it clear she will not accept a new Zenthari companion. Not. Marcus climbed the boarding ramp, Kithara close beside him. The ship's interior was even stranger than the outside, with corridors that curved in impossible directions and surfaces that seemed to glow with their own light. Everything was sized for creatures much larger than humans. But as Marcus explored, he noticed the ship was already adapting, with handholds appearing at human height and doorways adjusting their proportions. The command center was dominated by 2 positions clearly designed for different species. One was a traditional pilot station with screens and controls, while the other looked more like a raised platform, covered in what might have been neural interfaces. Kithara leaped onto the platform and immediately dozens of hair-thin filaments emerged from the surface to make contact with her fur. Marcus felt their mental connection expand dramatically as the ship's systems came online. Suddenly, he could sense things far beyond the walls of the vessel. The massive space station they were docked to felt alive with movement and energy. He could detect other ships in nearby berths, their crew's emotional states registering as distant flavors in his mind. "This is incredible," he whispered, settling into the pilot's chair. The controls were intuitive, responding to his thoughts as much as his touch. Through Kithara, he could perceive hyperspace routes stretching out in all directions like glowing threads. "We should leave," came Kithara's voice in his mind, clearer than it had ever been before. Danger approaches. Marcus didn't question her instincts. His military experience had taught him to trust early warning systems, even unconventional ones. "Where should we go?" Images flashed through their connection. Memories from King Vorthak of hidden bases and secret routes known only to the most trusted Zenthari operatives. One location stood out: a space station in neutral territory that served as a haven for traders and mercenaries from all species. "Blackwater Station," Marcus said, recognizing it from intelligence briefings during the war. "Good choice." The departure from Zenthari space went smoothly until they reached the border. Marcus was running through post-launch checks when Kithara's mental alarm nearly knocked him out of his chair. "3 ships decloaking off our starboard side," he announced out loud, falling back into his military communication habits. The pursuing vessels were sleek and angular, clearly built for speed and firepower. "Krell hunters," Kithara informed him. "They want the ship's technology." Marcus had fought against the Krell during the war. They were a militaristic species that viewed advanced technology as the ultimate prize, often raiding other civilizations for their innovations. A ship with living Zenthari biotechnology would be an irresistible target. "Marcus Chen," came a transmission in heavily accented Standard Galactic. "You will surrender the stolen Zenthari vessel immediately, or face the consequences." "Stolen?" Marcus activated the comm system. "This ship was legally inherited. I have documentation from Zenthari authorities. Human claims are irrelevant. Your species lacks the sophistication to properly utilize such technology." Prepare for boarding. Marcus felt anger surge through his connection with Kithara, but this time, he was certain it was his own emotion. He'd spent 2 years fighting to protect smaller species from Krell aggression, losing friends and nearly his leg in the process. The assumption that humans were too primitive to deserve advanced technology hit a nerve that went beyond personal insult. Kithara, can this ship outrun them? In normal space, no. But the hunters do not know all of our capabilities. Through their link, Marcus began to understand. The Stormclaw wasn't just equipped with standard, faster-than-light drives. The ship's biological components could manipulate space-time in ways that purely mechanical vessels couldn't match. However, the maneuvers required perfect coordination between pilot and navigator. The kind that typically took years to develop. We've been linked for 3 days. Is that enough? Trust me, Kithara responded, and Marcus felt her absolute confidence flow through their connection. The first Krell ship fired a warning shot that scorched their port side. Marcus felt the ship's living hull react to the damage, already beginning repairs. He accelerated toward the hyperspace jump point, while Kithara's mind interfaced deeper with the ship's navigation system. Second warning, human, stop your vessel, or we will disable it. Instead of responding, Marcus pushed their speed beyond what the Krell ships could match. Through Kithara's enhanced senses, he could perceive their pursuers' growing frustration as the gap widened. But he also sensed something else. More Krell ships moving to intercept them at the jump point. 6 ships waiting in ambush, he said aloud. They're trying to box us in. I know a different path. The sensation of what Kithara was proposing hit Marcus like a physical blow. Instead of using the established hyperspace route, she wanted to punch through space-time at a random point, creating their own temporary corridor. The technique was theoretically possible, but had never been attempted by anyone other than Master Zenthari navigators with decades of experience. That could tear us apart, Marcus pointed out. Only if we are not perfectly synchronized. Do you trust me? Marcus thought about his life back on Earth. The empty apartment, the crushing medical debt, the nightmares that woke him up, screaming about battles fought light years away. Then he felt Kithara's presence in his mind, steady and confident, offering him something he hadn't experienced since before the war: partnership, purpose, trust that went both ways. Do it. The space around the Stormclaw began to twist as Kithara's telepathic abilities, amplified by the ship's biological systems, reached out to grab reality itself. Marcus felt the strain through their connection, but also sensed her absolute focus. His job was to keep the ship stable while she worked, compensating for gravitational stresses that would have liquefied a normal vessel. The Krell ships immediately detected the spatial distortion and opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams and projectile weapons lit up space around them, but Marcus was no longer flying the ship in any conventional sense. Guided by Kithara's precognitive instincts, he moved the Stormclaw through patterns that seemed impossible, dodging attacks before they were even fired. Space cracked open in front of them like breaking glass, revealing a tunnel of swirling light and dark. Marcus dove the ship through the opening just as it began to collapse behind them. Through their connection, he felt Kithara's exhaustion from the effort, but also her satisfaction at their escape. They emerged into normal space near Blackwater Station 12 hours ahead of schedule, having crossed a distance that should have taken 2 days. Marcus immediately began scanning for pursuit, while Kithara recovered from their emergency jump. That was incredible, he said, gently scratching behind her ears as she rested on her platform. I've never seen anything like it. Vorthok and I practiced that maneuver for 20 years before we dared attempt it in combat. You learned it in minutes. Must be natural human talent, Marcus joked. But he could sense that Kithara was serious. Your species thinks differently than ours. Where we see complex mathematics and precise calculations, you see patterns, possibilities. It should not work, but it does. Blackwater Station was exactly what Marcus had expected from the intelligence briefings, a massive free port where species from across the galaxy came to trade in goods and services that might not be entirely legal in their home systems. The station was built inside a hollowed-out asteroid, with docking bays carved directly into the rock face. They had been docked for less than an hour when Marcus's communication system activated. The caller was human, which surprised him given how few of his species made it this far from Earth. Marcus Chen? The woman on the screen had short gray hair and wearing the uniform of the Interstellar Merchant Marine. Captain Elena Rodriguez, formerly of the EDF cruiser Tenacious. I need to speak with you immediately. Marcus recognized the ship name. The Tenacious had provided fire support during the Battle of Xerion Prime, helping to evacuate wounded soldiers after the ground mission went wrong. Captain Rodriguez, what can I do for you? It's what I can do for you. Word is spreading that a human inherited a Zenthari battle wolf and their ship technology. That's made you some powerful enemies, but also some potential allies. Can we meet in person? There are things you need to know that shouldn't be transmitted over open channels. An hour later, Marcus sat in a dingy cantina in the station's commercial district, while Kithara attracted stares from various alien species who had probably never seen a Zenthari battle wolf in person. Captain Rodriguez had brought 2 companions, both human veterans who Marcus recognized from their bearing and the way they constantly scanned for threats. The situation is more complicated than you realize, Rodriguez explained over drinks that probably contained enough alcohol to sterilize equipment. There are elements within the Earth Defense Force who believe that humanity needs every technological advantage we can get if we're going to survive in galactic society. Elements? Unofficial ones. People who remember that we're still the newest kids in the galaxy, and not everyone is happy about how we tipped the balance in the last war. There are species out there who think humans are too aggressive, too unpredictable. Some want us contained to our home system. Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's recycled air. And the Zenthari technology could give us an edge. Battle Wolf navigation capabilities. Biotechnology that adapts and repairs itself. Weapon systems that integrate with telepathic abilities. Some people think that's exactly what humanity needs to secure our place among the stars. And what do you think? Rodriguez leaned forward. I think that a lot of good people died in the last war because we were outgunned and outmaneuvered. I also think that your bond with that wolf might be the key to understanding technology that could save human lives in the future. Through his connection with Kithara, Marcus sensed her growing unease. She was picking up emotional undercurrents from the conversation that he was missing. These humans speak of partnership, but their hearts hunger for dominance. What exactly are you proposing? Marcus asked. Come back to Earth. Work with our research teams. Help us understand how human-wolf bonding works and what it might mean for future human-alien cooperation. In exchange, we provide you with protection from the legal challenges and any other threats that might emerge. And if I refuse? Rodriguez's expression hardened slightly. Then you're on your own against some very powerful enemies. The Krell aren't going to stop hunting you, and there are Zenthari nobles who would rather see Kithara dead than bonded to a human. Marcus looked around the cantina at the mix of species represented. Most seemed to be giving their table a wide berth. Whether because of Kithara's presence or because they sensed the tension of the conversation, through their mental link, he felt his partner's assessment of the situation. They offer protection but seek to use us. The pattern is familiar. Vorthak faced similar choices throughout his reign. I need time to think about it, Marcus said finally. Of course. But don't take too long. Word is that several Krell battle groups have been spotted moving toward neutral space. This station won't be safe much longer. After Rodriguez and her companions left, Marcus sat with Kithara in their ship, trying to process everything they'd learned. Through their connection, he could sense her memories of similar conversations from her time with King Vorthak, political machinations and power struggles that always seemed to circle back to the question of who could be trusted with advanced technology. What do you think we should do? He asked her. We are stronger together than apart. But strength attracts those who would exploit it. Vorthak learned to be careful about choosing allies. Marcus thought about his military experience, the countless briefings about interspecies politics, and the delicate balance of power that had emerged after first contact. Humanity was indeed the newest player in a very old game, and their rapid technological advancement had made some established species nervous. Maybe it's time to show them what humans do when people try to back us into a corner, he said. What do humans do? Marcus smiled grimly. We get creative. The attack came at 0347 station time. 3 days after Captain Rodriguez's visit, Marcus jerked awake in his bunk aboard the Stormclaw as Kithara's mental alarm crashed through their connection like a klaxon. Through her enhanced senses, he could perceive multiple ships approaching Blackwater Station under stealth cover. 12 vessels. Krell configuration. They moved to surround the station. Marcus rolled out of his bunk and began pulling on his clothes. The prosthetic leg always took longer to attach properly, but he forced himself to work methodically despite the adrenaline flooding his system. How long before they're in position? 8 minutes. But there is more. 3 Zenthari ships approach from the opposite direction, and 1 human vessel maintaining distance. Son of a bitch, Marcus muttered. The legal challenges hadn't been enough, so now they were facing a coordinated effort to claim Kithara and the Stormclaw by force. Through their mental link, he felt his partner's growing anger at being treated as property to be seized. Marcus made his way to the command center, his boots echoing through the ship's curved corridors. The Stormclaw was already responding to the threat, its biological systems hardening the hull and preparing weapon systems that had remained dormant during their peaceful stay at the station. Station control to all docked vessels came a broadcast over the communication system. We are detecting multiple unidentified ships on approach vectors. This is a neutral port. Any hostile action will result in immediate expulsion from the system. Marcus almost laughed at the station administrator's optimism. Blackwater Station had defensive systems, but they were designed to discourage pirates and smugglers, not handle a 3-way military confrontation. The station cannot protect us, Kithara observed. We must leave. 12 Krell ships plus 3 Zenthari cruisers? We can't outrun that many. Marcus settled into the pilot's chair as Kithara took her position on the navigation platform. The ship's neural filaments connected with her fur, and immediately their mental link expanded to encompass the vessel's sensory array. Through their shared perception, Marcus could see the attacking forces taking their positions with military precision. The Krell ships were forming a blockade around all hyperspace exit points, while the Zenthari vessels moved to assault the station directly. The human ship remained at the edge of sensor range, apparently content to watch events unfold. Attention Blackwater Station, came a transmission in the clipped tones of Zenthari military authority. We demand the immediate surrender of the stolen battle wolf Kithara and the vessel illegally possessed by the human Marcus Chen. Failure to comply will result in the destruction of this facility. Marcus activated his communication system. This is Marcus Chen aboard the Stormclaw. Kithara is here of her own free will, and this ship was legally inherited under Zenthari law. If you want us, come and take us. The response was immediate weapons fire from all 3 Zenthari ships, their energy beams converging on the section of the station where the Stormclaw was docked. Marcus felt the ship's biological hull absorb and redistribute the energy, but he also sensed the dock structure beginning to buckle under the assault. We need to launch now, he said, beginning the undocking sequence. Wait. Kithara's mental voice carried a complex mixture of calculation and anticipation. I sense an opportunity. Through their connection, Marcus began to understand what she was perceiving. The attacking forces had assumed they would try to flee, positioning themselves to prevent escape rather than coordinate their assault. The Krell and Zenthari ships were treating each other as rivals rather than allies, each group wanting to be the one to claim the prize. They're going to get in each other's way, Marcus realized. Exactly. And there is something else. The station administrator has been in communication with the human ship. They are not here to observe. Marcus felt a chill as he understood the implications. Rodriguez and her people weren't just watching to see who won. They were waiting for the chance to step in and claim the Stormclaw after everyone else had exhausted themselves fighting over it. The Stormclaw broke free from the docking clamps just as the station's defensive systems activated. Energy cannons and missile batteries opened fire on the attacking Zenthari ships, but it was clear the station was outgunned. Chunks of asteroid debris began spinning away as weapons fire carved through the facility's superstructure. All ships, this is Station Administrator Vex, came a desperate broadcast. We have over 50,000 civilians aboard this facility. Cease fire immediately. The Zenthari response was to increase their rate of fire. Through Kithara's enhanced senses, Marcus could perceive the panic spreading through the station's population as beings from dozens of species tried to evacuate through inadequate escape routes. "They will destroy the entire station to claim us," Kithara observed with disgust. "This is not honorable warfare." Marcus felt his own anger surge through their connection. He'd spent 2 years fighting to protect civilians from exactly this kind of military aggression. The fact that it was now happening because of his inheritance made it personal. "Plot a course through the Krell blockade," he ordered. "We're getting out of here, but we're taking some of them with us. That is suicide. We cannot fight so many ships. We don't have to fight them. We just have to make them fight each other." Marcus accelerated the Stormclaw directly toward the nearest Krell ship, a massive battlecruiser that had positioned itself to block the primary hyperspace exit point. Through their connection, he could feel Kithara's alarm at the apparently suicidal course, but he could also sense her beginning to understand his plan. "Unknown vessel, alter course immediately or be destroyed," came the Krell transmission. Instead of responding, Marcus pushed the ship's speed beyond what conventional engines should have been capable of. The Stormclaw's biological systems responded by drawing power from sources the Krell couldn't detect, making it appear as though they were about to ram the much larger vessel. At the last possible moment, Marcus threw the ship into a spinning dive that carried them under the Krell battlecruiser's firing arc. But he wasn't trying to escape. Instead, he positioned the Stormclaw so that when the Krell ship fired its main guns, the energy beams would pass directly through the space where one of the Zenthari cruisers was pursuing them. The effect was immediate and spectacular. The Krell weapons, intended to destroy the smaller ship, instead tore through the Zenthari cruiser's shields and hull. The Zenthari ship's response was equally swift, launching a full spread of torpedo-like projectiles at what they assumed was a deliberate attack. "Brilliant," Kithara observed as the two groups of ships began firing at each other with the fury of old enemies. Vorthok would have approved. Marcus didn't have time to acknowledge the compliment. 3 more Krell ships were moving to intercept them, and the remaining Zenthari vessels were trying to target the Stormclaw while simultaneously defending against the Krell assault. Worse, his tactical display was showing the human ship finally moving closer, apparently deciding the moment was right to intervene. "EDF Cruiser Northampton to Stormclaw," came Captain Rodriguez's voice. "Marcus, you're surrounded and outgunned. Surrender now and we'll protect you from both sides." Marcus could hear the lie in her voice, and through their connection, he felt Kithara's assessment of the human crew's emotional states. They weren't there to protect anyone. They wanted the Zenthari technology, and were willing to sacrifice him to get it. "Sorry, Captain, but I've got a better idea." Marcus dove the Stormclaw toward Blackwater Station's superstructure, using the massive facility's bulk to shield them from the pursuing ships. Through their mental link, he could sense Kithara accessing the ship's most advanced capabilities, systems that required the perfect coordination they had developed over the past week. "There," she indicated, highlighting a section of the station's structure that housed the main power reactors. "If we can destabilize the containment field," Marcus understood immediately. The station's power system was based on controlled antimatter reactions, standard technology throughout the galaxy, but notoriously unstable when disrupted. If they could cause a cascade failure in the containment system, the resulting explosion would be visible from 3 star systems away. "That'll kill everyone on the station," Marcus pointed out. "Not if we evacuate them first." Through their connection, Marcus felt Kithara reaching out with her telepathic abilities, enhanced by the ship's biological systems until she could touch the minds of every intelligent being on Blackwater Station. It was an incredible feat, requiring her to simultaneously maintain their navigation link while projecting thoughts across millions of cubic meters of space. The effect was immediate. Throughout the station, beings from dozens of species suddenly became aware of imminent danger and the location of the nearest escape routes. Panic turned to organized evacuation, as Kithara's mental influence guided them toward safety with the efficiency of a master tactician. Meanwhile, Marcus piloted the Stormclaw through the station's superstructure, using their intimate knowledge of the facility's layout to stay ahead of their pursuers. The Krell and Zenthari ships were still firing at each other, but several had broken off to chase the small ship that seemed to be leading them on a deliberate course toward the station's most sensitive areas. "Ready," Kithara informed him as the last group of civilians cleared the danger zone. Marcus lined up their approach vector on the power reactor complex and armed the ship's offensive systems. The Stormclaw's weapons were designed for precision rather than raw destructive power, perfect for the surgical strike they needed to make. All ships, this is Marcus Chen. He broadcast on all frequencies. You have 30 seconds to clear the area before this station goes critical. I suggest you use them wisely. The response was immediate and panicked. The pursuing ships scattered as their commanders realized what the human was proposing to do. Even the most aggressive Krell warrior wasn't foolish enough to remain in proximity to an antimatter explosion. Marcus waited exactly 30 seconds, then fired a single precision shot into the reactor complex's containment system. The explosion was everything he had hoped for, and more. The antimatter reaction tore through space like a miniature star going nova, vaporizing what remained of Blackwater Station and sending out a shockwave that scattered ships across the entire system. The electromagnetic pulse from the detonation would disable electronics for light hours in every direction. But Marcus and Kithara were already gone, having used the explosion's energy signature to mask their transition into hyperspace through a route that only the ship's biological navigation system could calculate. They emerged 3 systems away, far beyond the reach of their pursuers. "We are free," Kithara observed, settling back onto her platform with obvious satisfaction. "But we are also alone." Marcus considered their situation as the adrenaline began to fade from his system. They had no allies, no safe harbor, and limited resources. Earth was closed to them as long as Rodriguez and her people wanted to claim the Zenthari technology. The Zenthari Empire would never accept a human as Kithara's companion, regardless of legal technicalities, and the Krell would hunt them across the galaxy for the advanced systems they carried. On the other hand, they had demonstrated capabilities that no one had expected. The perfect coordination between human intuition and Zenthari telepathic abilities had allowed them to outmaneuver forces that should have easily overwhelmed them. They possessed a ship that could go places and do things that conventional vessels couldn't match. "You know what?" Marcus said finally. "Maybe being alone isn't such a bad thing." "What do you mean?" "Think about it. Everyone wants to control us, use us, or claim ownership of what we represent. But we've proven that we don't need anyone else's protection or approval. We work together better than anyone thought possible." Through their mental connection, Marcus could sense Kithara considering the implications. In her memories of life with King Vorthok, she had always been part of a larger hierarchy, serving the needs of the Zenthari Empire and its political structure. The idea of operating independently was both frightening and liberating. What would we do? Marcus smiled as possibilities began to unfold in his imagination. Whatever we want. There are a lot of places in the galaxy where a ship like this and a team like us could make a difference. Humanitarian missions in war zones, rescue operations in dangerous space, maybe even some freight hauling if we need to pay the bills. We would be mercenaries? We'd be partners, independent contractors, free agents who help people who need it and don't answer to anyone except each other. Kithara was quiet for several minutes, processing the concept through their shared mental connection. Marcus could feel her weighing the freedom against the security they were giving up, comparing their demonstrated capabilities against the challenges they would face. Vorthok spent his life serving others' ambitions, she finally observed. Perhaps it is time to serve our own. Marcus began plotting a course toward the Rim territories, where civilized space gave way to unexplored regions and opportunities for those willing to take risks. Through their connection, he could sense Kithara's growing excitement at the prospect of choosing their own path for the first time in her long life. "So, we're really doing this?" he asked. "Just the 2 of us against the galaxy?" "Just the 2 of us," Kithara confirmed. "I believe that will be more than sufficient." Marcus engaged the hyperdrive and watched the stars streak past as they headed toward whatever adventures awaited them in the void. Behind them, the major powers of the galaxy would continue their political games and territorial disputes. But somewhere in the darkness between the stars, a human veteran and his alien partner had found something more valuable than advanced technology or military supremacy. They had found each other, and that was enough to face whatever came next. 6 months later, the partnership of Marcus Chen and Kithara had become something of a legend on the Rim. They had evacuated miners from collapsing asteroid facilities, guided lost ships through navigational hazards that would have been impossible for conventional vessels to survive, and once famously rescued the entire population of a research station from Krell raiders who had expected easy prey. The major powers still wanted what they represented. But Marcus and Cathara had proven that sometimes the best way to win was simply to refuse to play by other people's rules. They had carved out their own space in the galaxy, one mission at a time, and neither of them had any intention of giving it up. In the end, it turned out that a human veteran and a telepathic alien wolf made the perfect team for surviving in a universe that didn't always make sense. And if that wasn't worth fighting for, Marcus couldn't think of anything that was.